Palestine, the Journalists' Union denounces the murder of 232 media professionals by the Israeli occupation forces since the start of the conflict. U.S. President Donald Trump announced a new set of tariffs on 92 countries. And El Salvador approves a constitutional reform that will allow indefinite presidential re-election, enabling Nayib Bukele to remain in power. Hello and welcome to From the South. My name is Belén de los Santos. I'm from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. And we begin our information with Palestine as the Journalists' Union denounces the murder of 232 media professionals by the Israeli occupation forces as part of the genocide perpetrated against the Palestinian people. The Union of Palestinian Journalists regretted the death of photojournalist Ibrahim Mahmoud Hajjaj, killed on Wednesday in an Israeli bombardment against the city of Gaza while he was documenting the crimes of the occupation of the Zionist regime. This crime is part of a systematic policy aimed at silencing the press in Gaza and intimidating counter-hegemonic media professionals. The union also denounced that these actions violate the right to information and freedom of the press, urging international organizations to act to stop the violence against Palestinian journalists. And in Lebanon, the Israeli occupation forces committed a new violation of the ceasefire agreement in their territory, attacking several areas from the south to the Bekaa Valley in the east. According to local media, Israeli airplanes raided several towns of the southern region, also striking the Wazani area using flares. Likewise, the occupation forces attacked for an hour villages on the outskirts of the city of Nabishid, Massa, and Brital. The Israeli regime continues to relentlessly violate the ceasefire agreement in Lebanon since November of 2024, carrying out attacks with combat aircraft, drones, and ground incursions almost daily. We now move on to other topics. Protesters have rallied in the center of Kiev in recent days to reject reforms aimed at restructuring the anti-corruption agencies. The new legislation, which integrates these agencies under the supervision of the Prosecutor's General Office, was repealed. Let's see more.
The recent scandal surrounding the attempt by Zelensky and his circle to control anti-corruption structures in the West led to protests in major Ukrainian cities. The National Anti-Corruption Bureau and the Special Anti-Corruption Bureau of the Prosecutor's Office were created in 2015 to control resources granted to Kyiv. After the Rada restricted their autonomy in early July, it returned it to them today, which for many shows that the demonstrations are just political theater as part of the system.
The National Anti-Corruption Bureau was created during Biden's presidency. Therefore, the Democrats' team still has some influence on this body. Naturally, Trump does not like this very much, so he decided to tighten the screws a bit. But the Democrats decided to show their teeth and brought their electorate in Ukraine out to Maidan Square. Therefore, in order not to worsen the situation, Zelensky received, again, orders from his masters in the United States to try to reverse the situation a bit and return it, so to speak, to normal.
The National Anti-Corruption Bureau and the Special Anti-Corruption Bureau of the Prosecutor's Office have been tools for eliminating rivals or anyone who goes off script. Tension around them had been growing since late June, when the Anti-Corruption Bureau charged Timur Mindich, dubbed Zelensky's wallet, with corruption.
This is the most surprising thing, that they did not care about the problems, and did not come out to protest when Zelensky completely handed over to Trump all the natural resources of Ukraine, all the valuable things of Ukraine, farmland, assets. No one protested. They didn't take to the streets when they started catching Ukrainians on the street, as hunting prey and loading them into vans, to send them to their death at the front. They kept quiet.
Washington and Brussels turn a blind eye to Kyiv's thefts as long as it does not affect the main thing, the war against Russia. Now Zelensky is forced to balance between his eagerness to consolidate power and the need to maintain the support of his Western partners.
Zelensky got scared and backtracked. He said that now he is going to promulgate all these laws again, and everything will be new, but it remains the same as before. Therefore, unfortunately, I note that there is no state of Ukraine, but only our puppet Zelensky, who is a representative of the corporate power of the West, on the territory of Ukraine.
Since the Maidan protests in Ukraine in 2014, the struggles in the country have been nothing more than a sporadically recurring spectacle. The same Russophobic slogans of 11 years ago are now also being shouted. These are not peace riots, it is a war between clans. The protesters are Soros scholars and subsidy hunters clamoring for no end to the West's neo-colonial control over their country. And of course, with one puppet or another in power, that control will never end.
teleSUR, Moscow.
And we continue now with other topics. In Peru, a strong sandstorm affected visibility and forced people in the south of the country to wear masks and glasses to protect themselves. A sandstorm never seen before was recorded on July 31st, transforming the sky in the middle of the day and reducing visibility to almost zero in districts such as Ica and several sectors of the southern coast of the country, including Tacna, Arequipa, among others. The phenomenon, driven by the so-called Paracas winds that exceed the 40 kilometers per hour, raised a dense cloud of dust that forced the temporary closure of copes, markets, and main routes as well. Now we have a short break coming up, but first, remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. We continue with more information. U.S. President Donald Trump has once again escalated the international trade war, announcing a new set of tariffs on 92 countries. Precisely on Friday, the head of state signed an executive order imposing levies ranging from 10% to 41% on imports from dozens of trade partners to take effect in a week. Among the new rates, an increase on Canadian goods from 25 to 35% stands out, as the other alleged countries has failed to cooperate in curbing fentanyl flows into the U.S. In addition, the deadline for a tariff deal with Mexico was extended by another 90 days. The new rates have raised fears of inflation in the U.S. and caused stock market rates to drop. And we go now to Argentina as the International Monetary Fund approved on Thursday the disbursement of $2 billion for the country as part of a $20 billion agreement that was set in April. The first review of the $20 billion loan the IMF granted Argentina last April allowed for the disbursement of $2 billion, even though the administration of Javier Milei failed to fully meet the terms of the agreement when the quantitative target for the accumulation of net international reserves had not been achieved. This new loan is marked by a complex climate of growing inflation, poverty, and adjustment policies in the country. For his part, the Argentinian Minister of the Economy, Luis Caputo, assured that the foreign currency will be deposited on August 4th. And we stay in Argentina as health workers from the Garrahan hospital protested through the streets of Buenos Aires to denounce the dismantling of hospitals, low wages, and their lack of staff. The health workers carried out a moving candlelit march in protest of the emptying of the hospital's resources, the low salaries, and the critical lack of staff. The demonstration brought together health professionals, nurses, administrators, and maintenance staff who also denounced the progressive underfunding of the hospital and the current precarious working conditions. The Garrahan Hospital is an iconic public health center that saves thousands of children's lives and is now being abandoned by the administration of Javier Milei.
Financiar una institución con la
Defunding an institution with the scale and history of this hospital is almost irreparable. What we must avoid is the collapse of the hospital, because if the hospital falls, a large part of the country's pediatric healthcare system falls with it, and as I said, so does that of the region.
And in Chile, 6 people died and at least 9 others were injured after a collapse in a copper mine located in Rancagua in the center of the country. The incident was triggered by a 4.3 magnitude earthquake that was felt in the El Teniente mine structure on Thursday afternoon. The National Copper Corporation detailed that the collapse left the workers at a depth of 1,200 meters, 300 meters more than the level at which they were operating before. In addition, the authorities pointed out that this is a collapsed zone, which makes search, rescue, and damage assessment work more difficult. We continue with other topics. The report Violence Against Native Peoples in Brazil 2024 recorded that at least 121 native inhabitants were killed during the year of 2024. In comparison to the past year, the number of registered murders increased from 208 to 211. Likewise, the report indicates that 159 native lands in 21 of the 27 states of the country suffered some case of invasion, illegal exploitation of resources, or damage to heritage. It should be noted that these types of violence that manifest themselves indirectly with a deadly impact on the native population generate concern in these communities. These states with the most cases of murders of native people were Roraima with 57, Amazonas with 45, and Mato Grosso do Sul with 33. And the Legislative Assembly of El Salvador approved a constitutional reform that will allow indefinite presidential re-election with the purpose of allowing Nayib Bukele to continue in power. With 57 votes in favor, the Congress dominated by the ruling party New Ideas approved the reform of Articles 75, 80, 133, 152, and 154 of the Salvadoran Carta Magna, which until now prohibited immediate re-election. The initiative, which was approved with dispensation of procedural and without legislative study, also extends from 5 to 6 years the presidential term and eliminates the second round in the general elections. President Bukele began his second consecutive term in office on June 1st of 2024, despite the fact that several articles of the Constitution prohibited, following a change of criteria by the Constitutional Chamber of the Supreme Court. We have a second show break coming up, but first, remember that we invite you to stay tuned for a special interview with renowned Iranian journalist Sara Emami, who was recently presented the Simon Bolivar Journalist Award in Venezuela, live across our multi-platform on August 1st at 5 p.m. Ecuador time, 6 p.m. Cuba time, only on teleSUR. Stay tuned, and we'll see you in the next block. Welcome back to From the South. We continue with more information. The president of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro, presented the National Journalism Award, Simon Bolivar 2025, to Iranian journalist Sara Emami, survival of Israeli bombings in her nation. The journalist belongs to IRIV, the Iranian radio and television organization, and is a survivor of a bombing against civilians carried out by the Israeli Air Force. The Iranian communicator received this award on Thursday, thanking the Venezuelan president for his unconditional support and solidarity given in these difficult times to the people and government of the Islamic Republic of Iran. And our multi-platform teleSUR celebrated its 20th anniversary with a gala concert at the Municipal Theater of Caracas with a show entitled The Birth of a World. Let's see the details.
For 20 years, this has been a meeting point for all knowledge and information about Latin America and the Caribbean. In one night, teleSUR brought together the spirit of 2 decades of work, symbolized by artists on stage through culture, dance, movement, and rhythms.
Today, more than ever we say, it's time for a new world to be born. Let's begin.
More than 100 artists from Cuba, Mexico, Argentina, Bolivia, Brazil, and Venezuela took the stage.
It's a kind of mix that points toward the virtue of that variety, of that diversity, united in that great family, but it points toward those colors, rhythms, those vibrations that come from all parts of our continent.
In the legendary Teatro Municipal de Caracas, there was a moment for the prima ballerina and director of the Cuban National Ballet to shine.
The moment we all feel as one, sharing the same principle, the same ideal, culture becomes something that belongs to everyone. It's not something that separates countries, but something we share, something we offer, something we deliver with great gladness.
Cuban drums, Bolivian diablada, Argentinian chacarera, and other rhythms demonstrated that diversity is a meeting point.
An important moment for the people of the South to reunite, to look at one another and recognize one another as one nation that contains the thoughts of liberation and self-determination.
A spectacle that showcases our American identity, and where we can see the spirit of truth in our people. So, by celebrating teleSUR, we celebrate Latin America, the entire global South, we celebrate truth, we celebrate poetry.
Venezuelan authorities and delegations from countries in the global South highlighted the role of teleSUR in connecting the realities of the peoples of the world.
We are very excited, first of all, for being invited, for being here with so many groups from different countries to pay this tribute with what we do, which in the case of our company is the art of dancing.
The audience was left wanting more.
I hope they can do things like this, to produce shows like that, not just news. I think they've united Latin America in a single theater.
It was a reaffirmation that culture and communication cannot be separated.
There is an inseparable triad, which is education, communication, and culture. They are three elements that cannot be separated. In this case, we participate in a culture-sharing paradigm. We do not support an exclusively protective paradigm for which it is enough to have a vault, a castle, a monastery to safeguard expressions of art and culture, locked away like a treasure, which they are, but we believe that culture is not complete if it is not shared, if it is not communicated.
The event ended with a love song, Infinito Sur, or Infinite South, a tribute to teleSUR's 20 years of struggle, an anthem to the birth of a new world.
Ignacio Lemos, Víctor Figueroa y Marcos da Silva para teleSUR desde Caracas.
And like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. Also join us on social media. We are on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, my name is Belén de los Santos. Thank you for watching.